Have you ever wondered how that snack from your local store could possibly end up on a shelf halfway across the world? Well, today we're diving deep into the fascinating, high stakes world of global marketing. We're going to unpack that huge decision every company faces. Do you sell the exact same thing everywhere, or do you totally reinvent it for every new culture? So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll kick things off with a wild story of how one energy drink literally took flight. Then, we'll get into the big puzzle that every global brand has to solve. And from there, we'll walk through the four huge decisions they have to make. What's the product? How do you promote it? How do you get it to people? And of course, what's the price? Let's jump in. To really get a grip on how this all works, we've got to look at a brand that didn't just enter a market. It basically created a whole new one from scratch. Okay, so get this. The story starts when an Austrian businessman, a guy named Dietrich Mateschitz, is visiting Thailand. He's got some serious jet lag and he tries this local energy syrup. And it works. He sees this huge potential, brings the idea back to Austria, and tweaks the formula a bit. The result? Red Bull. And the scale of its success is, well, it's just mind-blowing. Today, Red Bull sells something like 8 billion cans a year, all across more than 170 countries. So, what on earth was their secret? And here it is. This is the secret sauce. They bet everything on complete total standardization. The taste of the drink, the look of the can, and that gives you wings message, it is exactly the same whether you're buying it in Vienna or in Venezuela. It's a really bold strategy, and honestly, it's pretty rare to see it work this well. That incredible Red Bull story leads us right to the main event, the central question that every single company has to answer when they decide it's time to go global. This is the fundamental choice. It's the big gamble, right? Do you bet that technology and the internet are making us all more or less the same, creating one giant, homogeneous global market? Or do you believe that deep down, local cultures, local traditions, and unique tastes will always come out on top? So you've got two main camps here. On one side, you have standardization. The big idea, championed by a researcher named Theodore Levitt, is that the world is shrinking and we're all becoming more alike. If you can sell one product everywhere, you save an absolute fortune on costs. But then you have the other side, adaptation. This camp says no way, national differences are everything. Take a company like Rubbermaid. They actually changed the colors and the materials of their products to match local styles, because they know what sells in Ohio might be a total dud in Tokyo. Okay, so let's start picking this big dilemma apart piece by piece. And we have to start with the first and most obvious P of marketing, the product itself. Even if a company wants to standardize, a lot of the time they just can't. Local laws can get in the way. For years, the European Union had this thing called the chocolate war, all about what could legally be called chocolate based on how much cocoa versus vegetable fat it had. And then, of course, there's culture. Häagen-Dazs absolutely hit it out of the park in Japan by creating a matcha-flavored ice cream. They tapped into a deep cultural taste, and it proves that adapting can open up massive new opportunities. And product names, oh man, names can be a total minefield. The British company Clark's Shoes learned this one the hard way. They had to issue a public apology after naming a line of shoes after revered Hindu gods. A huge, huge cultural blunder. It just goes to show, a simple name can turn into an international incident if you're not paying close attention. And hey, beyond just getting your product right, you've got to protect it. Counterfeits are a massive headache for global brands. I mean, think about it. When a fake, cheap handbag falls apart after a week, who does the customer blame? The real brand. And as you can see here, it's a huge problem for the most visible stuff, clothing, handbags, electronics, and it erodes trust one cheap knockoff at a time. Okay, so you've nailed your product, hopefully. Now, how in the world do you tell people about it? Well, that brings us to our second P, promotion. So broadly speaking, there are two ways to go. A push strategy is all about convincing the stores and distributors to stock your product on their shelves. Think of a big sales force going from store to store. A pull strategy is the complete opposite. You use advertising to create demand directly with us, the consumers. The idea is that we'll then go into the stores and ask for your product, effectively pulling it through the system. But getting that message across is so much trickier than it looks. A company has an idea, right? They encode it into an ad and send it out into the world. But then we, the audience, have to decode it. And right in the middle of that process, you have what's called noise. Things like a clumsy translation or a major cultural misunderstanding that can completely warp the original message, leading to confusion or even worse, real offense. This chart is basically the playbook for how companies can mix and match their product and promotion. You can go for the dual extension, like Rolex. Same watch, same message of timeless luxury everywhere on Earth. Or you can get really creative. My favorite example is product extension. Look at Altoids. In the UK, it was originally sold as a stomach soother, but for the US market, they kept the exact same mint but pitched it as a curiously strong breath freshener. Same product, totally different story. And then on the far end, you have product invention, like creating a wind-up radio for places that don't have electricity. Now for P number 3, distribution. This is the often invisible but absolutely essential part of the puzzle, the logistics of actually getting the product from the factory to the customer. So here a company faces another really important choice. Do you go exclusive, giving selling rights to only a handful of resellers? This gives you a ton of control and creates a sense of prestige. Or do you go intensive, trying to get your product into every possible store you can, focusing on convenience and mass availability? New car dealerships are the perfect example of an exclusive channel, right? You're not going to walk into a Ford dealership and see them selling Hondas. This strategy helps maintain the brand's image and ensures a certain level of service from the people selling it. And here is a really cool concept that pretty much shapes a company's entire distribution strategy: value density. Think about a low-density product, like a really heavy, cheap bag of cement. It makes zero sense to ship that across an ocean. You have to make it locally. But what about a high-density product, like a tiny, incredibly valuable computer chip? You can make all of those in one super factory and just fly them anywhere in the world. It's a simple idea that has massive, massive consequences. And that brings us to our final P, price. Now, this might seem simple, but in a global market, believe me, it is anything but. Trying to set a global price is like navigating a minefield. Do you just charge one price everywhere, or do you have different prices for different countries? You have to account for all these hidden costs from shipping and taxes that can suddenly make your product way more expensive than you thought. And then you get into the really tricky stuff, like transfer pricing between your own company divisions, or even government stepping in and setting price controls. It is a constant battle. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that there is no magic bullet. There's no one right answer. Red Bull's one-size-fits-all strategy was a massive home run for them. But for most companies, winning globally isn't about choosing standardization or adaptation. It's about finding that perfect strategic blend of global efficiency and deep local understanding. And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. If you were in the driver's seat, launching a new product, where would you place your bet? Would you spend the extra money to adapt your product, hoping to perfectly match every single local market? Or would you risk it all on a standardized approach, aiming to build one single, powerful, unified global brand? The answer to that question, well, it defines everything.